So the way this evolved in the early 90s, I'd started a project dealing with this. And we had set up a protocol where we had made contact with these objects. That ended up being on the front page of the Pensacola, Florida paper. Army intelligence and CIA found out about it, and then they came in and started asking me, what are you doing? How are you doing this? And that started a whole process where there were friendlies and unfriendlies in the U.S. government and other governments who reached out. And the friendlies were people who were very much read into some of these projects, who knew that they had been managed illegally. And they began to advise me. Now, never been in the U.S. government, never been in the military, never been in the intelligence community. So I started out pretty cold and pretty green. I'm an emergency doctor, trauma, big ER. Each of us saw 6,000 people a year. The Gun and Knife Club, we called it. And by 93, I was being asked to go up and brief the director of the CIA for Bill Clinton, R. James Woolsey. Now, I'm a 30-some-year-old medical doctor going up, and the letter that came to me, and this is the key point I want to make, stated, and I have it, it's in my archive, it's going to come out pretty soon publicly, and it says, you're going to be the first person to brief the Clinton administration and the director of the CIA on this issue, because they've made inquiries and have been denied access. Now, huge red flag should go over everyone's head right now. You're talking about the President of the United States, the director of the CIA, making through channels an inquiry on something that they know is happening, and they're being denied access. So immediately I knew either that was a lie or the whole enterprise has gone off the rails in terms of being managed illegally and improperly. So at that point, I went up, took the meeting. The cover story was a dinner party for me and my wife and the CIA director and his wife, who was the chief operating officer of National Academy of Sciences, and our host, who was a think tank director for the Pentagon, and his wife. So there's 6 of us. And sure enough, he was very shaken. He absolutely had not been read in. And so I provided him a lot of information. And I brought a whole briefcase full of evidence. I mean, just positive evidence, documents, photographs, this, that. And this was 30 years ago this year, December 13th, 1993. So at that point, my whole paradigm tilted, where I realized there's something very wrong with this. I didn't know anything about, the popular terms now, or the counter state, or the deep state, or secret government, illegal projects, on and on and on. It was off my radar, totally.
You had no idea at the time that any of that was happening.
This was, I had actually sort of a serious PTSD over this, because it was like completely upended, my world. And my thinking about our country and what had happened. So I started digging into this, and I'm a full-time emergency doctor. I was chairman of the department, and I got more and more involved. And I made an early call for people to come forward who did know about this. And at that time, the Disclosure Project, in that incarnation, let's call it, was called Project Starlight. And Project Starlight was a briefing process for the executive branch and then eventually members of Congress. So I ended up putting together all this information and whistleblower testimony, documents. I ended up receiving some top secret documents that were not declassified that I have and have published, because we came to the conclusion that these projects are being run unconstitutionally, and therefore all personnel, all evidence, and all documents pertaining to them have no protection over from the National Security Act. They cannot be kept secret if they're going to operate outside the oversight of the constitutional oversight requirements of the president and the Congress.
What were some of the things that were in the top secret documents?
Well, I have one that's from Nellis, the so-called Area 51 area, where there was a security alert by some civilian groups trying to see what was going on there. And it has the distribution list. The document isn't that important except for, because it was a security alert, but but the distribution list is important because it has the project code names and code numbers. That document, which was dated 1990, in the 90s, is one of the documents I gave, for example, to the president's people, and also eventually when I briefed the J2, the head of intelligence, Joint Chiefs of Staff, Admiral Wilson, and that was on the top of the pile because I said, look at the distribution list here, follow that thread. And so, for example, in the case of Admiral Wilson, now, he's head of intelligence, Joint Staff, Admiral. He made an inquiry into this based on a portfolio I had couriered to him, but he was denied access, and there's public documents now about this that leaked out. You can look it up. And what happened is that he was also threatened personally and with demotion. So this was all happened kind of prior to my stand-up briefing at the Pentagon for him, which happened in 1997, over 25 years ago, 26. And it was a very disturbing event for him. For me, by then, I was battle-hardened. I realized what was going on. He was shocked that he had been threatened and denied access to these projects. I wasn't, because I said, well, you're in good company. The SecDef, Secretary of Defense has, the President, the Director of the CIA, and by then I had met with key members in the Congress and Senate Intelligence Committee. They had all been pushed aside and denied access. So by then I had already accepted this new paradigm of there being, as Senator Inouye said, and I'm quoting, there's a secret government with its own Air Force, its own Navy, its own funding mechanism that's above the law and free from the law itself.
Hey everybody, I'm Shawn Ryan. Click here to subscribe to the Shawn Ryan Show YouTube channel for the hottest and most compelling interviews that you will not see anywhere else. I've also made a playlist of all the previous SRS episodes so they're easy to find. You can find that right here.